because of the caliber of the man that you've come to celebrate. And the next person I'm going to be calling up to speak is someone that he counts as a dear friend, married to another one of his very, very dear friends. As you know, Dr. John served on many boards, one of which was Sapetro, and the family of the Danjumas are more than business partners. They're more than people that he has related with officially. They have become family to the Johns. They celebrate with them, and as you can see, in times like this, they would commiserate with them. And they have always shown up for them, whether it was weddings, whether it was counsel. He trusted in their counsel, and they trust in his. Next to speak, please make welcome, on behalf of Sapetro and also representing the Danjuma family, Senator Daisy Danjuma. Please put your hands together for her as she makes her way to the stage.
Good evening, everyone present here, especially Mrs. Rose John, children, grandchildren, family, friends, and well-wishers. A tribute to Dr. John. Dr. Thomas Maurice Asukwo John, a titan of the Nigerian oil industry, a distinguished member of the board of directors of South Atlantic Petroleum Limited, Sapetro, and above all, a cherished friend, has gone home to rest. His passing is a great loss, not only to Sapetro and my family, but also to the oil industry. Dr. John joined the board of Sapetro in 2007, and for over 16 years, his wealth of experience, wisdom, amiable personality, and exceptional dedication shone brightly through our board meetings. He also held the position of chairman of the Finance and Investment Committee of the board until his passing, bringing his clarity and insight to finance and investment decisions. Dr. John's resilience was immeasurable. Even while undergoing treatment, he still insisted on attending board meetings virtually until he took his last breath. He gave his all to the very last, and Sapetro will never forget his contributions and sacrifices. Beyond corporate settings, I had the privilege of personal interaction with Dr. John. He was a dear friend of the family, loyal, dedicated, friendly, compassionate, very calm, with great capacity to listen. He is gone, but his hearty laughter still lingers on in our hearts and memories. However, while we mourn his departure, his sterling achievements and a life well lived call for celebration, remembrance, and emulation. I join the younger generation of professionals and executives in the oil industry and general business landscape to let the exemplary life and career excellence of Dr. John be a guiding light. May we continue to honor his memory by upholding the values he cherished so dearly, especially integrity and accountability. For the family he left behind, especially his wife, children, grandchildren, extended family members, friends, and well-wishers, know that his legacy will always remain. I extend my deepest condolences on behalf of our company. The board, especially our founding chairman, General T.Y. Danjuma, who was a very close friend of his, management, the entire staff of SAPetrol, stand with you in these painful times and pray that the good Lord grants you the fortitude to bear this loss. Rest in perfect peace, Dr. John. You will be greatly missed and fondly remembered. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Please put your hands together for her one more time. Commendations to all my speakers so far. You're doing very well with time. I'd like to ask all future speakers to do the same. Thank you. Next, we're going to be inviting an in-law, someone who's going to speak on behalf of a section of the in-laws, and also speak on behalf of Dr. John's heritage, the Efik people. He was married to Dr. John's sister, Auntie Consuela. Please put your hands together as you make welcome Senator Boyce Henshaw as he comes to say a few words.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you have heard, my wife, Consola John, is Dr. John's youngest sister. The surveyor, J. Theophilus John children, had a very strict upbringing. And I'll give you an example. About a year after we got married, we went to Calabar for Christmas with my wife. The day after we arrived, she went to see her parents in the evening. Less than 1 hour into the visit, her father calls, "Consola," and she responded, "Yes, Papa." And he said, "Do your titi, you better return to your husband's house. Married woman, no, they stay out late." And right away, Cons left and returned to the house. That's how strict their father was. But that strict upbringing, I think, was what was responsible for many of the children becoming outstanding achievers, including Dr. John, Tommy himself. And I'm sitting on the same table with Celestine, who is a renowned professor of obstetrics and gynecology. But he was not just outstanding, he was also very loving, diligent in service, committed to the common good, and a professional par excellence. If you worked or related with him closely, you will know that he was a perfectionist. Little patience for incompetence, and certainly no room for failures. But behind the strict facade lay an enormously empathetic and caring spirit. That was the Tommy we knew. So in a way, as has been said, this is a celebration of a rich and worthy life. I have many, many recollections of him, but I think I'll just deal with 3 that I consider to be defining periods of his life and his profession. The first was on his trip to Japan with his minister, and he dealt with all the issues so well. His hosts were extremely impressed. His minister was elated. On the flight back, the minister confided in him, and he was appointed the group managing director of NNPC. The second defining period, I think, was when he was about to retire. Facing some challenges, he dealt with those challenges in such a gracious manner, without compromising his professionalism, without compromising his integrity, without compromising his principles. He would rather let go than compromise those ideals. So he retired. A lot has been said about his Prostate Foundation. So I think the third defining period or event in his life was when he handed over his house to the handmaids of the Holy Child Jesus in Calabar. The sisters were elated, but I think perhaps Tommy was a lot more elated than the sisters themselves. You know, when we finished with the sisters on the way back, he just told me how contented he was, how pleased he was with what he had done. But that was Tommy. So, for me, for the children, the extended family, we will cherish the moments that we shared with him. This is a sad moment, but I would say that he is in a better place. Good night, Tommy, and may God rest your soul. And this is from Consola and myself. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Please appreciate him one more time. In every family, you find that the siblings have different dynamics. Sometimes there's some rivalry. Sometimes some siblings become really close and do everything together. If one is in trouble, most likely the other is or caused it. And my next speaker had that kind of relationship with Dr. John. They were siblings. He was his brother, one of his brothers, but they were particularly close. Rumor has it, even if they were not brothers, they would have ended up being very good friends. He's going to speak on behalf of the larger John family. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Professor C.T. John.
Good evening, everybody. It is particularly painful to me I'm sorry. He was my friend, my twin brother, older than me, but we were like twins. We had a private language of our own. Even within the family, nobody could understand us. I can still remember us standing in Calabar, overlooking the river. And my father would stand up and say, "Tommy, Celestine, see that man there? He'll be watching us as we go out." He said, "There, but for the grace of God, go I. Be kind to people." He was such a disciplinarian. I was telling the children when they wanted to learn something about us, I know a lot of people are going to have a lot to say. I could talk forever because we were like twins. We were friends, had our secret language. I looked after his family. I was his best man. I was his driver. We were together in Prague, Milan, wherever. We were just together. Very few people knew about us, but we were just there, brothers and friends. As I take up the helm as the head of the John family now, I'll try, because Tom is not here. I've written so much about him, but I've turned them all up. I write again and I tear up. And when he got ill, I was ill too at one stage, and we were frantic. He would phone me, we would talk. Who would look after each other? You can't go, you can't go, you can't go, you can't go. God rest his soul. A lot of you have come for different reasons, whatever it is. I thank all of you, the John family of Coburn Town, Calabar. We thank you. God bless you all. Thank you. This is my son, Dr. John. That's the next head of the John family.
I'm sure we could do a lot better with the applause. It's not an easy thing to stand up here at a moment like this. And whenever you find anyone struggling, I'd like for you to encourage them in those moments. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing that with us. One more time, please just appreciate Professor John. One of the things the John family is known for is for involving themselves with their society, their environment. They're not just beneficiaries in Nigeria, they are people who have impact in Nigeria, whether it's schooling or healthcare. And one of the things, as you will hear at some point in the biography of Dr. John, is that he established the Thomas John Prostate Foundation. And you hear about that much later, so I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but please make welcome his daughter as she comes to speak about that and representing the Thomas John Prostate Foundation. Please make welcome Dr. Chinwe John. Keep clapping, she's almost here.
Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, reverend sisters, family, friends, all protocols observed. I'm here to speak about a cause that was very dear to my father's heart, and that's the Thomas John Prostate Foundation, which he often calls TJPF. So the Thomas John Prostate Foundation launched officially on December 19, 2008. But although that was the official launch, he had actually been working on aspects of the foundation 4 years earlier, in 2004. So my father, in order to show appreciation, our father and friend and brother decided to set up help so that men will be screened. So what is the Thomas John Prostate Foundation? What is its core mission? The core mission is no man who has early access to prostate cancer screening should die of prostate cancer. I would like to share a few medical statistics. Prostate cancer is actually the most common cancer in men of African origin. And it doesn't matter whether the men are in Africa or another country, it's still the #1 diagnosed cancer in African American men and any man of African origin. So it's something of importance to all of us. And even if we don't know of someone personally who has had prostate cancer, it's likely that there are people in our environment and community who may be at those early stages. And so Daddy, being always very practical, wanted to set something up so people could test themselves early and get quick treatment. If there's anything good to be said, if one can use the word good with prostate cancer, is that if you catch it early, you can actually cure it. And it's one of few cancers in which this is possible. So in 2004, an outreach program was set up by the Catholic Church in Calabar. It was very successful. And the following year, on the World Day of the Sick in 2005, a very seminal lecture was given by the distinguished Professor Ungpo Song of the Calabar University Teaching Hospital. And subsequently, various seminars were given all around the south of Nigeria and then the north and all over. So TJPF is to help men all around Nigeria. And he has had a lot of support from many of you here already. And if you're new to learning about TJPF, I would like to tell you that it meant so much to our father that even towards the end, I don't know where he got the will from, but somehow he was able to muster up just sheer will and determination and organize various aspects so that when he's gone, the Prostate Foundation will continue to run smoothly. It was so important to him. And I know everyone here holds him very dear to their hearts. And I would like to share that one way you could do something to honor him or to show thanks or just anything, if you want to make my daddy happy, do something for TJPF. It isn't something for him, but it's something for a cause that he cared about. And it's also something that you'll be doing for your own community. For us Nigerians, Africans, the matters of prostate cancer is very serious. And so please, there are so many ways you can support the foundation. It's not only by donations. You can actually reach out to TJPF and they'll help you to set up an outreach program in your village or community. So please, my father's mission was that no man with early access to prostate cancer screening should die of prostate cancer. And if you could join us, the family, the dedicated board of directors who have been with him from the very beginning. It's the same people because it means something so important. He has such dedicated staff, really. So, and people were inspired by him because of how much it meant to him. And he would love, we would all love, if you could join too. And this way we can keep our dear daddy, brother, uncle, mentor, and friend's legacy alive. May our dear daddy rest in perfect peace. Thank you.
I think she did great. You could put your hands together for her. You can hear the passion her father carries. It's still alive on the inside of her, and that is beautiful. For those of you who don't know, the foundation has given free screening to thousands of men across Nigeria and free treatment to hundreds. So it's something, a laudable endeavor. Please put your hands together for the foundation as well. Next, I'd like to welcome a close friend and long-standing business partner of Dr. Thomas John. I wanted him to come up earlier, but I just noticed, I was looking for him in the crowd, but I just noticed where he was sitting, so I'm going to call him up now. Please make welcome Mr. Hakeem Bello Osage as he comes to say a few words on behalf of his beloved friend.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It wasn't that you missed me. Honestly and sincerely speaking, I literally have just got off the plane, but I knew that I had to be here, and I've been in touch with Jenny to let her know when the plane landed, when we were taxiing, when I got through immigration, when I got home, when I showered, and that I had finally arrived. This was not an occasion to miss. I first met Dr. John at a tough time for me personally. There had just been a coup d'etat. I was no longer special assistant to the minister, and I had been, in my own eyes, exiled to the petrochemical division in Apapa. And when you move from head office, and you cross that bridge to another part, you really feel it is exile. However, it was one of those exiles that you look back with great fondness, because Dr. John had just been transferred from the Kaduna refinery to petrochemicals in Apapa as well. And there we met. And there started one of the most consequential relationships in my life. The man was brilliant, intense. One of the not so many people, I should say, who I felt I was always behind him. His schedules left me breathless. And I always had this feeling that work that was to be done, I was behind. And there was a certain patriotism, there was a certain honesty. As I grew to work with him, I realized that he had worked on the Warri refinery. He had been in charge of the Kaduna refinery. And now his objective was to build a first-class petrochemicals complex from Nigeria. It is indeed one of the most outstanding process units in the country today. And if there is a legacy for Dr. John, it is that petrochemicals complex that thankfully has been privatized and is one of Nigeria's most successful companies. Please remember him for that. He was one of the generation of outstanding engineers who had as their task, or set themselves the target, of showing the foreigners in Shell, in Mobil, in Ajib, that Nigerians could create a great state corporation that was just as good as Mobil or Shell, that dedicated themselves to building our country, that learned marketing and finance on the job, and notwithstanding the fact that that dream was not fully realized, their contribution to this country and to that era of the 70s and the 80s must never be forgotten, shall never be forgotten, and he represents one of the very best of that era. I want to talk about one other story about him, because many people talk about his engineering excellence, the way he sorted out Warri, Kaduna refineries, his dedication to work. But one other thing that has not been mentioned is his loyalty. Loyalty to friends, loyalty to family. And I have to give you one story, which I don't think I've shared it. We were in United Bank of Africa together. Obviously, when I was thinking of other directors, he was #1 on my list of non-executive directors. And as you know, we had our challenges with the government of the time. And at a certain occasion, we were warned that the passports of all the directors were going to be taken. So we were advised to leave the country. And I remember, informing Mime at the time, we're leaving the country. We decided to go by road rather than air because the chances of our being arrested were lower by road than by air. Anyway, we get to the border and we are promptly arrested. Why it didn't occur to me at the time that they would have probably had alerts across all the borders, I don't know. But anyway, we were arrested. We pleaded, they collected our passports, and I remember driving back to our respective houses at about 2 a.m. and having to explain to my dear wife, passports taken, our effort to flee not succeeded. So the next morning, I called Dr. John. I knew he was in London, and I explained to Tom, so sorry, this is what has happened. Our passports have all been taken. I'm trying to look to find out where the other board members are. So could you, since you're in London, thank God, please remain in London so that there is a board that is not under arrest, and so that somebody can be named to replace me as chairman in the event that I am in prison. We're going to have a meeting that night in order for us to discuss next steps. At about 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock that evening, who walks in to the meeting? Dr. John himself. And I said to Tom, Tom, what on earth are you doing here? I specifically told you, don't come. They are going to take your passport at the airport. Tom replies, yes, that's what happened. So I said, okay, if you knew it was going to happen, why did you come? Tom says, Kim, your passport has been taken, Femi's has been taken, X has been taken, they have all been taken, and you're asking me to relax in London with my passport intact. It is on this occasion that I had to come back to be with all of you, have my passport taken, and we meet to discuss the struggle ahead. You know, when you're in a struggle and somebody acts that way, it gives you the strength to continue the battle because you know that you're not alone. And the struggle continued, we got our passports back, and things went well for us. But it is probably, for me, the greatest act of loyalty that I've encountered from anybody in my life. For that, I thank you, Tom. I have no doubt that you are somewhat amused, probably still surprised that I still am shocked by what you did. I hope that you are looking at all of us today, understanding and realizing that we all love you dearly, respect you dearly, that your wife and that your children will continue the legacy that you left, and that sad as they are that you have departed, that at the same time they are thankful and proud for the legacy you left. For all those people, in particular in the Petroleum Corporation, I want you to look at that era as a golden era and to think to yourselves that that era needs to be restored if we are going to have a greater country. Dr. John, God bless, rest in peace, and thank you.
I know that you can do a lot better than that with the applause. You see, because many of you are contemporaries and close friends, colleagues, it may not be amazing to you to hear these stories, but my generation, we are still looking for those kind of heroes. We're still looking for people who we can tell these kind of stories about. So I'm humbled by some of the things that I'm hearing today. One more time, let's celebrate Dr. Thomas Maurice Asukwo John. May his kind come again in Nigeria. We've heard about some of his work exploits, but it's important to know that a man is more than the job that he does, and his impact is further reaching than his colleagues and his endeavors in the office. And so we want to hear from his staff, particularly those who lived in his home at Ilado Close, who worked with him closely. Some of them had been with him for many years, particularly this lady I'm about to introduce has worked with him for 17 years. She came in as staff, but today is now a member of the family. Essentially, and I heard this from his children, they said if there was somebody they had to trust to be with him, if they couldn't make comfortable to have by his side. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Miriam Edigbe.
Good evening, all. Well, I've known Dr. John for 17 years, and working with him was one of the best experiences in my life. He was not just a boss, but he was more like a father. A problem, knowing you or not, he was ready to solve, and he will follow up to be sure that that problem was being solved. I've worked with him and I've come in contact with him with so many experiences, but he was just there. In terms of timing, he was somebody, he will rather tell you, I will go to that place 30 minutes before the time. He was always time conscious. He never goes anywhere late. He will tell you, I'd rather go there and be the first and leave early. That was something I know I did not learn from him, but it was one of the best things that he has ever taught me. In terms of with his staffs at home, he would tell them, I'm going out in 30 minutes. And his 30 minutes is 30 minutes. If you are not ready in 30 minutes, the driver knows what he usually do to him. Sometime he will come, the driver has pulled off his shoe, he will say, come on, come on, come on, come on. And the driver will not even remember that he doesn't have one of his shoes on. And that is how he will be on the steering. Most time when you call him, I call him more on Sunday to know what our itinerary for the week will be like. When you hear his voice, he will say, talk, 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 talk. What do you want to say? I'm listening. Even when I have nothing to say, if I have much to say, I will just keep quiet because I know he's not in a good mood. But when I call and he say, Mariam, okay, tell me, what is it? Then I can tell him everything because at that point in time, I know he's in a good mood. He was somebody that was never tribalistic. He was never tribalistic. He loved everybody. He loved everybody like his family. He loved those that he knew and those that he never knew. And he would tell me, you don't know what this life will be, but you just have to love everybody equally. And that is one of the things that he did and I love and I always want to do. He was somebody that, I know he was not the type that, oh God, I will miss him. Every one of us in Ilado Close will miss Dr. John because we learned a lot under him. He taught us, he groomed us, and made most people who they are today is all thanks to Dr. John. And may his soul continue to rest well in the bosom of the Almighty God.
Go on and appreciate her. Encourage her as well. Next, I'd like to welcome someone that Dr. John was friends with, very close friends with. They're both engineers, both members of the Society of Chemical Engineers. As a matter of fact, I believe Dr. John's first job after he left university was with this gentleman. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome to speak on behalf of the Society of Chemical Engineers, Professor Ogonye.
I'm happy that I'm the first non-indigenous South to talk. I am an Ijebu man. In 1969, the first generation of chemical engineers, they met at Moby House. And they founded the Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers. MAURICE ASUQUO John was one of them. Was one of the foundation members of the society, about 25 of them. All of them were trained overseas. I was not one of them. I was just completing my PhD at that time. I didn't meet him until around March 1974. I was reading an article. This article, a groundbreaking research article by one Dr. T.M. John and Ujewiski. Ujewiski was the supervisor of this Dr. John. It was a groundbreaking research on time analysis of catalyst decay. By then, I've just started the Department of Chemical Engineering, University of Lagos. And we have employed one Dr. Susu, now Professor Susu. His own research area was catalysis. This is a man, catalyst decay. My own research interest on the optimal control of reactor with catalyst decay. So you can imagine if the three of us were to form a research team. So I did everything possible through my own research professor in Wisconsin to get Ujewiski to convince Dr. John to come and join us in University of Lagos. I succeeded. He came as the second recruited staff to start the Department of Chemical Engineering, University of Lagos. The history written at the 50th anniversary shows that #1 member of that department is one Dr. Francis Ayodele Ogunye. The next one, Dr. T.M. John. But he stayed for 3 months. He said, Ayo, I'm resigning. I said, why? He said, I want to go to NMPC. I said, please bring your letter of resignation. He brought it, I processed it. And when I got to the administration said, no. We brought the whole family to Nigeria from Canada. They stayed in mainland hotel for 3 months, and you want them to go. I said, please don't stop them. I resisted. But eventually, they allowed him to go. Despite that, the friendship between me and Tom continued for years. Whenever I arrived from Port Harcourt, we would make sure he visited me at the University of Lagos, to the extent that when Jennifer was to enter the university to study medicine, I was the guardian to Jennifer. Celestine, I hope you are there. Patrick, you are there. These are the friends I made through Dr. John. Now, when he got there, for you to see how loyal this man was, I was on the board of ABB Rwanda Corporation. ABB Rwanda Corporation bidded for the NGM plant, the NIOC NGM plant, Obricon, to supply the LMA petrochemical with the feed. It was a $45 million contract. I learned that the coordinator of napkins had already was about to award the contract to the other company that bidded. That other company had only constructed one plant in India, working at 55%. ABB Rwanda Corporation had constructed 88 of this plant worldwide, and the WAS was working at 97%. The people at NMPC, they went to sell these plants. So I gave Tom a call, a lawyer friend. I told him what is happening. He was the MD of the petrochemical. He knew the implication of awarding this plant, this $45 million plant, on the $2 billion plant. He flew down to Lagos. He dialogued with the coordinator of napkins, my own Egmont. That one did not budge. He returned to Port Harcourt disappointed. That was on April 20. On April 21, there were changes in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. While my brother was here working on Saturday, he got down at 7 p.m. It was when he got to the ground floor that he learned that he had been removed. And Dr. Tom John became the group MD of NMPC. A week later, I visited Nappims to tell Mr. Oladile, all the senior NMPC people know the relation between me and Pastor Olatunde. Pastor Oladile is my student, my class of 74 students at TIFE. I just went to brief him. He said, sir, wait. He left. He came back with a file. Inside the file, they've already recommended that the other company should be awarded the contract. In front of him, I phoned Tom. Tom shouted on Oladile, stop the contract. He said, I cannot stop it without a letter from you. 30 minutes later, Alero brought a letter stopping that contract. And Dr. John called the analyst. He queried him. No, not that he queried him. He told him to tell him how he did the analysis. This competent engineer, he discovered that the man never did any equalization of the analysis. So he called for a new contract, a new analysis. In the end, it was actually ABB Rwanda Corporation that won the contract. Ladies and gentlemen, that opened my heaven into wealth. not just as a professor anymore. Yes, I can't lie to you, but I'm telling you, till today, no kobo went to Tom's pocket on that contract. That is him. Very loyal to his friend. Very, very loyal to his friend. Very, very loyal to his friend. In 1992, University of Lagos now wanted somebody to chair the endowment fund. The registrar came to meet me. He said he wanted NNPC, my friend, to be the chairman. I said, you are a senior assistant registrar 18 years ago when you said we should surcharge this man. He said, the university did not approve my recommendation. So I took the letter to Tom. On the day of the launching, my friend came. He honored me. He gave 5 million naira. This was the limit of his approval. And everybody clapped. So that senior assistant registrar, then the registrar of University of Lagos, went to meet him to say, we are very, very grateful. I said, Tom, that was the man who said we should surcharge you. That is, when people know me, I will speak the fact. I said, that is the man who said we should surcharge you. So, you can see my friend. Now, but the other one now is chemical engineering. You know, before he retired, one of the novel things Dr. John did was to be the project manager for the Cardinal Refinery. Let me tell you, you can never find it in any chemical engineer who is part of the design team, part of the engineering team, part of the procurement team, part of the construction team, part of the commissioning team, part of the operation team. Tom and 2 others. Is Jide Toyode here? Is here. Is Alex Ogenebwe here? You see, these 3 special chemical engineers, they combine those 6 functions in themselves. And they got Cardinal Refinery, Warri Refinery, and Port Harcourt Refinery to work. Not that Cardinal Refinery, no, Port Harcourt Refinery was one time working at 110% capacity. To the extent that Chief PhD had to call me that, Ayo, you chemical engineers, what are made of you? I said, we are special species. That's what I told Baba PhD. That is it. I hope the GMD of NNPC is here. If it's here, or the chairman of the NNPC PCL, I hope you are here, or the minister. If you are not here, let people carry my message to them. I'm advising you, please. I'm an old man now, 82. So I want our country to be a great country. In 1978, Nigeria and China were on the same level of development in the world. But what did China do? What they did? They put together all the engineers of the academies and gave them 3 years to see that they don't import. You can imagine in the 80s, any Chinese good into this country, as a quick China care. But today, what is China? You know it, they are #1 in technology, I can tell you this. I'm a chemical engineer, I spent all my life chemical engineering. Therefore, I'm advising you, please, get together these species of people, these project managers. Jide is here around, Alex is here around, all their deputies, project managers are still alive. Get them together, they will get all this refinery working in a very, very short period. Now, Jennifer, Chichi, I don't know the third one. ESCOM and my own Rose, you have lost a great friend. The Ogunye family has lost a great friend. But this is the time you shall enjoy the derivative of your father, your grandfather, and your husband. I tell you, he was a good man. The Ogunye family, we commiserate with you all. God shall be with you. God shall take care of you. You shall never suffer, because that probably your father, your husband is no more. Adieu, my good friend. Thomas John was my good friend. Until we meet again. Good night.
Please join me and celebrate Professor Ogunye. One of the things I learned early in life that is important to have powerful friends. I'm a young man, I run a small company, and we have a lot of interaction with big companies. And to protect ourselves, we decided to get a big friend. And by way of our lawyers, Udo, Udoma, and Bello Osage, and they have saved us from many bouts of bullying, and they've helped us in many regards. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome my next speaker, who also is a longtime friend of the Johns, and particularly Dr. Thomas John. Please put your hands together for our big friend as he comes to say a few words, former Minister Udo Udoma. Please put your hands together as he makes his way to the stage.
Now, I first met Dr. John in the early 1980s. He was then a rising star in the NNPC. He was responsible, as people have said, for the Warri as well as the Kaduna refineries, and they did an exceptional job. I can vouch for that job because when I served briefly as special advisor to the petroleum minister, the then petroleum minister, who is actually here, Chief Etiebet, the petroleum marketers, the products marketers, what they were lobbying for was exports, LPFO, HPFO export, not like now, where it's all imports of AGO and PMS. So they did an exceptional job, and I think I want to join all the other speakers in commending the pioneer staff of NNPC. There were a crop of very dedicated people, and the refineries worked and worked well. I don't think they're giving enough credit, and I can see many of them here. That is how I remember Dr. John. He was a very dedicated, very hardworking. And I recall that when he was appointed the managing director, I was happy, very happy, but very surprised. And the reason was that he had no godfather. He did it by dint of hard work. Dr. John was my friend. I liked him from the very first time I met him. He was forthright. He was blunt. He was direct. He had no pretensions whatsoever. We became even closer after his retirement from NNPC. Even though he was very busy after retiring from NNPC, he was in much demand because of his exceptional expertise, his management experience. Even though he was very busy, he always found time for me. He treated me like an equal, although I looked up to him as to an elder brother. I became a regular and frequent visitor to his Ikoyi residence. Tom always spoke very freely with me. He took an interest in my political and professional activities, as well as my family. He always asked after Sally, my wife, and my children, particularly my daughter Mayan, who was in Seven Oaks with ESCO. Unfortunately, that regular interaction became impossible during COVID. We had to restrict ourselves to telephone calls. But after COVID, and once Rose, his wife, was back in Nigeria, he invited Sally and I to join both of them at dinner at the Whitbaker Hotel. Even his choice of the venue for the dinner reflected his concern to select a venue near our own residence. Whitbaker is nearer our place than it is to their place, but that is where the venue he selected. He was in very good form. He was cracking jokes. He was looking very relaxed. We discussed the state of the nation. Anytime the two of us met, we always discussed the state of the nation and how things could get better. He was always positive. But unfortunately, that dinner was our last social gathering. Tom was a real family man. He was close to Rose and all his children. He was protective of them. He was proud of their achievements. One of the high points of the year for me and other members of my family was the annual Christmas carols and celebration that Tom and Rose organized every December on his birthday. It was a real family affair. Indeed, my mom started coming to Lagos because she wanted to be at that event. It was relaxing, enjoyable, an evening of fun, celebration, and a lot of times members of the family would also sing and do various things for us. It was most enjoyable. Tom was a man of faith. He was a strong Catholic who lived his life in accordance with Christian values. Christian values of thrift, kindness, and concern for his fellow man. I recall, as his daughter said, several years ago, after he survived prostate cancer, he set up a foundation to educate people about the disease and to assist in treatment. But he never boasted about these things that he did. He even told me about giving his house to the nuns, but it was a private conversation. He never went about feeling boastful or he didn't advertise these things. He did them out of conviction. He shunned the limelight. Instead, he chose to live a very private life, associated principally with close friends and with family. Tom was a very well-organized and meticulous man. I recall that in recent conversations I had with him in the last year, he was concerned about putting his affairs in order, very meticulous. Because as he told me, he felt that he was coming to the end of his life's journey. And he was brave. He didn't ask for people to either feel sorry for me. He accepted it. He said, everything that has a beginning has an end. And he organized himself. When I think about Tom, I think about a wonderful man. I think about a very disciplined, meticulous, hardworking, but also warm, humorous, and very compassionate. As Kim just said, he was a good and dependable friend. You could count on him. He was a man of unshakable faith. As he goes to join our Maker, I wish him peaceful repose in the bosom of the Lord. My condolences and those of my family go to his lovely wife, Rose, his children, Jenny, Chichi, Bicky, and Esco, as well as their spouses and all the grandchildren. Truly, the family has lost a very kind, a very caring person who I'm so happy that he was my friend. Fare thee well. Fare thee well, Dr. Thomas Asukwo John. Fare thee well till we meet to part no more.
Please put your hands together as well for yourselves. You've been an excellent audience so far. I have a few more speeches. I crave your indulgence. Please remain with this stellar attitude that you've had all evening long. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to welcome someone who, to all intents and purposes,